Mark, you ready?
Whenever you're ready.
Okay, Rebecca,
You're on.
like to call the October 9th Budget Committee meeting to order. Roll call, all board members are present. Need approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Public comments, I didn't see any. Did anybody have no public comments? So we'll just move right in. Steve, can you help us with budget update?
So thank you, Jack. So for 23-24, we're only going to spend a couple minutes on this today, but we will definitely be coming back to it. So one of the things that we included in the attachments for this agenda item is an update on the fund balance after the board made the decision in September to allocate maintenance expenses from Fund 10 to Fund 49. So this is, the attachment is the completion of the 23-24 process after that decision. We're going to want to come back to this topic for a couple of reasons. Number one, the discussion of fund balance. So later on this agenda, we knew we weren't going to get to it today, but we don't want to lose track of this. That the topic of the fund balance policy, we need to revisit where as a board you want to be with this topic, which ultimately could change our front end budgeting processes as we move forward, depending on where we want to be with that. So starting with just making sure everyone's aware of where we ended. And then secondly, you see planning for future years. Allie and I were identifying here some of the challenges that we had budget-wise in 23-24. And we're addressing in parens, whether that's a relationship to fund balance or whether it's a relationship to the budget. We're just continuing to bring these forward because we don't want to lose track of them. And we are going to begin the process very shortly of finishing the fourth draft of the 24-25 budget. In that process, Allie and I will then load all of the data for salary and benefits for all of the staff that were hired, all of the choices they made in late August for benefit selection, etc. And then we will, of course, add the actual student enrollment, open enrollment in, open enrollment out, and go through with a fine-tooth comb to get the fourth draft of the budget updated. We will then be able to tell you whether or not any of the issues that we identified above could start to be addressed in 24-25, or whether we have to start front-ending these in the 25-26 discussion, or potentially make mid-year budgetary adjustments in 24-25. That's the other option for discussion. The whole point of this agenda item is we don't want to lose track of these topics. Don't want to lose track of the fund balance. Don't want to lose track of some of those budgetary issues that caused us challenges this year. And we want to make sure we come back to them. But in order to come back to them, we have to properly complete the process for 24-25. So we will be asking for probably a 90-minute budget committee meeting in November. Probably not backing it up to something else so that we can really go through these topics. We can have the final results from 24-25. We can talk about the fund balance policy, and then ultimately we have to talk about the completion of the borrowing process for the $175 million. So we'll need more time next month, and so we'll be asking for that next Monday night. So we're not asking for any action on any of the 23-24 items. We don't really have the time today to get too much into the discussion, but we just don't want to lose track of this because these are important issues that we need to come back to. Does that make sense? Okay, so then
On the cash flow borrowing, that was successful. What interest rate did you finally end up with?
Yeah, appreciate you saying that. So we did incredibly well with the cash flow borrowing this year. We were at 3%, which was unexpected. We definitely were able to take advantage of the drop that occurred when the Fed dropped the rates. The market had adjusted very quickly because obviously this is a shorter term borrowing. Compared to a year ago, we were at like 5. So in and of itself, that solved the cash flow borrowing issue, which was listed up above in 23-24. So that was a real positive that we were able to have that go our way, basically.
And just as we prepare to start talking about the next tranche of money, do you expect that to be around 3% too, or is there any forecast?
Yeah, so right now they're forecasting around 4% because that's more longer term money. However, it is expected that the rates will drop at least 2 more times this year. And so that's definitely part of our discussion with the budget committee next month, is to get your feedback on, do you want to borrow the rest of the money in one borrowing? Do you want to do it in 2? And if you want to do it in 2, do you want to go a smaller amount first? Because we believe interest rates are going to drop, and then hold off till 2025 with a larger amount. So all of those items are what we're intending to bring forward next month.
Understood. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So for 24-25, we attached the timeline. I think the important thing to note is the administration will be asking for the board to confirm a special board meeting on the last Monday in October, next Monday night, 28th. And so we'll be asking for that. A question that we will pose is whether or not the budget committee wants to meet in between the time frame of the October board meeting and the special board meeting. In some years, the budget committees wanted to squeeze a meeting in there to go over the changes that were related to the 4th draft of the budget. In some years, the budget committee just said, we'll look at it as a full board. I don't have to decide today, but just something Jack to be thinking about next Monday night, whether you want to schedule 2 budget committee meetings. One would be before the 28th, one would be before the November board meeting, or whether you just want to do one in November and have the 4th draft go straight to the full board. So just something to think about. So the next agenda item is just to review some of the topics related to the 4th draft. Allie did send out the 3rd Friday count to all board members. It'll be in the packet as well for the board meeting next Monday night. A couple of takeaways in there. We were thankful that our budget planning process was incredibly close. Our budget estimate was 4412, and the students in seats were 4411. So super close. And what we're continuing to see is the growth that's occurring in our community is filling the gap between seniors graduating in the incoming kindergarten class. And we've seen that trend for a number of years now. It's a similar trend in other Dane County districts. But basically, it's very clear, we are at a point where the growth in the community is, so to speak, keeping us whole with the loss of the big senior class and the big difference between the kindergartners coming in and the seniors leaving. So the subdivisions that we're seeing in our community, the growth that we're seeing is incredibly beneficial to fill the gap. And we are seeing growth occurring in the 1 through 8 range primarily. where families are, moving into the district and, enrolling their students. But that's just one of the interesting things when you look at the student count is, we're fairly predictable right now for enrollment. And for enrollment to significantly increase in the future, it would take kindergarten class sizes materially changing. The kindergarten class sizes would need to be quite a bit higher than they are right now. Because the pattern, when you look at the enrollment count, the pattern remains the same. Our middle school classes are getting bigger again, 7th and 8th grade, where people moving in. And by the time those classes get to 12th grade, they're gonna be 350 kids. And our kindergarten class is around 260, 270, and you just see that 80 to 90 kid drop from the get-go, and then the growth is filling that in. So there absolutely is real growth occurring. It's covering up the difference between the seniors and the kindergartners. And so like people are definitely seeing a lot of growth, but our total numbers remain very consistent. So you'll see that. We'll do open enrollment in and out. We'll do all of the posting of salary and benefits. We'll look at utilities, transportation. We're gonna look at everything we can in the next couple of weeks and then bring that at the end of October.
Steve, I know we're tracking incoming kindergartners. Are we tracking transfer students coming in on a year-to-year basis so that we know last year we had X number of new students to the district?
Yes, so Julie Gangler, our registrar, is able to run pretty much any reports we want for withdrawals, enrollments, ads, to be able to track that. And we're actually seeing, getting a little more granular, our open enrollment is slowly increasing as well. So that's an area of growth that we've been seeing. It's not significant, but it's definitely within the stability of the larger number, we are seeing more interest through open enrollment for Waunakee. But absolutely, like any reports that a board member might be interested in, like withdrawals, enrollments, we can pretty much pull anything, to get more granular from the student count numbers. A couple of items we did want to talk about today that are a little more pressing. We're going to start with special ed, and you can see that Tiffany's here, so I'm going to ask her if she wouldn't mind coming up. One of the things that Alan and I have been taking a close look at is the data that we have in the organization and talking through about how we can better communicate that with the board. And special education is one of those areas, and we were just looking at that with Tiffany. So even though I mentioned like our overall numbers as an organization for student count are very similar to where they have been, that's not the case at all for special ed. We were pulling up special ed staffing as we were preparing for this discussion. And our number of students with IEPs in just the last 5 years is up 17%. So even though our larger overall enrollment number as an organization is very, very consistent, our number of students with IEPs has changed significantly. We also looked at our professional staffing, and as you know, as board members, we've added a number of individuals into the special ed department. But when we looked at the ratios of the number of students with IEPs to the number of staff that we've added, it's been incredibly consistent in special ed. It's around 11.5 is the ratio, and it's been that way. So one of the things that we had as a takeaway is it would be good for us to better communicate some of this data with the board, because like the student count is just big picture numbers. But you're not really seeing what's happening with the students. You're not seeing like IEP, you're not seeing English language learner numbers. You're not seeing some of the changes that are occurring that are more granular compared to the big picture numbers. So that's something that Ally and I have been thinking about, how to get that to you. So just so you know, we've been thinking about this and looking at it. In the special ed area, one of the things that I think we've done a really good job on is looking at all of the funding opportunities coming in from the state. One of them is called transfer service. So we have a very tight alignment between Ally and Tiffany working together on that. And just to explain how that works, Tiffany's department tracks all new kids coming into the district with IEPs. She then tracks the services that they need. If we can fill those services without adding staff, there's not a transfer service. So an example of that might be if we have one student move into an elementary program and they need speech, and we already have the staffing, there's no transfer service because we can meet the student's needs. However, if a student does move into the organization where the IEP calls for a one-to-one para for the student to basically be with the student most of the day, Tiffany will look at her staffing, and if that position is not available in the district, then works with Ally to do what's called a transfer service. So for 24-25, we put in claims that resulted in $152,000 after subtracting the state categorical aid. So Tiffany has put in requests for 2 paraeducators for students who moved into the district. Ally has already gotten the funding approved for 24-25. But I want to just turn it over to Tiffany so she can talk a little bit about this.
Yeah, I mean, transfer, you explained all of those areas really well, and I just, all I did to prepare to is look at like our numbers over the last 4 years in terms of new students coming in from the districts. I want to be clear that our increase in numbers isn't us identifying a whole bunch more of our resident students, it is students moving in. So in 21-22, we had 43 new special education students. And if you think of it, I mean, Steve referenced the ratio, you know, generally a special education teacher's caseload is around 10, could be a little less, could be a little more. But when you think about that, just in that 1 year, 43 students, and that was the first year I was here, and I thought, wow, if this is the case every single summer, it's gonna be difficult to plan for how much staff you need. So if you think about 43 students, that's 4 teachers right there. So, and then 22-23, there were a little lower numbers, 24, then 30, and then this year we're at 18 so far. So there are kids coming in, and you know, I talk to a lot of parents that call when they're district shopping, and they spend a lot of time trying to determine which Dane County school district, especially ones that are, you know, this summer we had a family moving from New York, and when we were working at the UW, both surgeons, you know, they are specifically looking for what are your special ed services like? How are they, you know, what's your philosophy? And they really spend a lot of time researching before they select a district. And so many of those, you know, incoming families are really doing their research and know that obviously Waunakee has a very good reputation in terms of academics, in terms of special education supports, which of course was true way before I was here. So that's, and then again, this request is just for 2 students that came in from out of district, and both have full-time support written into their IEPs.
Question, you indicated, up by like 17%. How is that compared with, like districts?
Yeah.
Have you looked at, peer districts?
We haven't, but we can. So the data system that we have is very powerful, and it does allow us to go out and do that. So we absolutely can do that. And just to share with the other board members, we've been pulling data on staffing and comparing it to student enrollment. And we've shared that with Jack, and our intentions are to bring that back to the next agenda item. But one of the things we realized when working through this issue with transfer service with Tiffany is that as board members, you see bigger picture data, you see total student enrollment, you see total staffing. But we want to do a better job of getting into the specifics with you to show you, like with EL, like the population of students and how that's changed, or special ed, where we're at with total numbers. So that you can look at it, and then as you mentioned, Jack, we can absolutely pull other districts' data and share that as well, which we do for a lot of things. It's very easy for us to do that.
It'd be interesting just to
Sure.
see where,
Yep.
where we stand.
Yep.
You know, because I think, you know, obviously you want to take care of all kids, but, you know, we should be on par with our peer districts. I think.
Right.
I appreciate the deep dive that all of you have done on trying to secure as much of the special ed funding as possible, not only with the categorical aids, but the excessive expenses. With a state average at about 32% of cost, are we slightly above that with the work you're doing? Are we significantly above that? Where are we at the average? How does that factor in with our budget?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we're working with Tiffany right now to present our approach to maximizing federal, state, and local funds at the per professional conference next week. And Ally's been pulling a lot of data to see how we're doing compared to others. And as an example, there's a couple of funding sources that we have pursued where Ally's found that, like, you know, 200 districts out of the 400 plus have gone after it, like high cost aid. Or with the social worker aid that we've gone after, I think it's like it's only a fourth of districts. So we definitely are above the standard because we pursue most every one of those pots of money. But that is data that we could absolutely look up. That would be interesting to just look and pull that to see as well. My gut tells me we're definitely above the average, but I would need to pull that to look at it.
What happens when these students leave the district?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question,
Yeah, so-
because the state transfer service program remains forever. It definitely is a unique element to the program where once a revenue limit has been increased, it becomes permanent. The only way that it would be reduced is if one of our students transfers to another district and we truly reduce a position. But in the end, it actually allows us, so let's say a student does move in, they move out, Tiffany frees up a position, but another student moves in, it allows her to reassign that staff member to the other person moving in without any budgetary impact. So this is a very unique program in that the funding becomes permanent, even if a student moves, as long as we reassign that person to someone else and don't save the costs. So at this point, I know Tiffany's requesting moving forward to next Monday night, the ability to hire these two paras. We do have a couple more staffing things if you wanted to take them all at once, or if you wanted to do them separate, it's up to you.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Tiffany, for being here. We do have two other items that we wanted to talk to you about that would, under this 24-25 planning, that would relate to next Monday night. The first one is related to the district's Title I grant. So Amy Johnson has secured a $30,000 carryover for Title I funds. So Title I is the program that provides support for, let's say, reading or math instruction for eligible schools. And she's been able to secure a good size carryover funding from one year to the next. But she's only able to carry them over to 24-25. So the funds do need to be utilized. So she's been working with Brian to request to bring in around a 0.51 temporary instructional support at a Title I school for the remainder of the school year. And Brian, do you want to talk a minute about like, 1-year contracts and like what that looks like?
Well, again, we occasionally hire teachers on 1-year contracts. And when you do that, obviously it's posted as such so that they know that it's not a recurring position. Most likely, this type of role, in our Amy and I's conversation, we would be looking to find most likely at this point, trying to find a teacher who is retired. That would be interested in doing this, and this would allow them, based on the amount of time. Contract wise and the amount of hours of work, it would allow them to take a role like this, fill the year and have no effect on their annuity. And so once, as Stephen mentioned, if this money isn't used, it's money that's just essentially given, lost, so.
How do we have the carryover? Lighten up the program the first year, or do we ask for too much money? What's the money?
It's, I guess I guess I don't know the answer to that. I would say that the programming that Amy coordinates for this is, obviously focused on just Title I schools. I can't really speak to how the carryover occurred, if there was more money provided than expected or expenses came in less. I'm not aware of the carryover.
So write that down, Jack, so we can get that unless you know.
I believe Amy said the intention was to have a position like this last year, but they weren't able to find anybody. And then the funding comes from our schools being identified. So right now it's Heritage, intermediate and middle school. So it goes by your student population, how much money you get, how many students and how many schools are identified.
And what is that? Yeah.
You have to submit data to them and then they analyze that and identify those students in the schools.
So has it been identified where this person?
Yeah, the 3 schools right now are Heritage, intermediate and middle school that are Title I schools.
And they live.
Yeah. They don't send it to them.
I would recommend.
I guess what I'd do is I'd like to have this as a one time.
And then I think that there's.
That's what it is.
One time.
Just want to make sure we're all on the same page. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion pass.
This the second item that worked with Steve and Ally to put on is actually related to Lisa and the health staff, and so I'll really turn it over to her to kind of explain how this got to us.
So you may recall that last year we were awarded, a nice little, health office support grant. That outlines pretty specifically what the funds were allowed to do. There was some professional allowances and then some, like supply allowances and that sort of thing. And so, we at that time believed it to be a one-time deal and it was done. And then just within the last maybe week or so, we received a follow-up saying the pot of money was not all used. So if you're interested in receiving this free money, please reach out. So of course I was like, sure. And so we were able to get an additional $11,500. So the parameters are the same. It's just a lot less money. And it's really just to recognize the work of our health assistants and our nurses and the increased needs that there are. So we would recommend doing what we did last year when we had the funds available, but on a much smaller scale. So it would include kind of 2 realms. It would include
include a smaller bit of just across the board retention bonuses and a smaller bit of like additional supplies that that just help them to do their jobs effectively. This will end this year. So again, this would just be a one-time thing based on funds we have already received. Did I miss anything? Okay.
Motion, nice discovery. Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I love free money.
Come back again next year, please.
Thank
You
you.
never know.
So under, excuse me, under the topic of natural gas purchasing. The budget committee did bring forward to the full board last year for the first time. That our district participate in purchasing or locking in a percentage of our natural gas for the winter months. Last year, we started, I think the program was January through March, if I remember off the top of my head. And we did end up saving funds in that process from natural gas purchases. So the committee in this, I would say a couple months ago, when we shared the results of our first time participating in this program, suggested we might want to move it up a little bit and maybe do December, maybe do November. So we brought this back for discussion. If there is an interest in beginning to lock in a percentage of our natural gas earlier than we did last year, we would want to bring this forward to the October board meeting if there's interest to start in November. If there's not an interest in starting it in November, Ally and I can just hold on this and we can bring it back in November. And then we can provide you with the newest pricing in November, and then you can take a look at that point. When we put the data in here last week, it was within, I think, a day or two of the violence in the Middle East picking up that caused natural gas pricing to increase. So the numbers that were in there from last week had increased from where they were. We did get the most recent numbers yesterday and they've come down just a touch. But they're still a little bit higher than where we were last year. The question for the board on this one, again, this is really related to your crystal ball. If you happen to believe that the Middle East might end up in a regional war, the effect on gas pricing will be significant. And we would have an opportunity to kind of lock in now at rates consistent with where we were last year. And we could then know we have budget consistency. If you believe that maybe some of the geopolitical environment is going to resolve, the rates will likely come back down a little bit, and we'd maybe have the opportunity to delay this. The challenge again with this topic is it's trying to predict the future. And you know, it's not like there's a right or wrong answer. It's really what are the goals? And if there was a goal to start this program earlier than we did last year, we could move this forward to the October board meeting. If the board wants to just sit back and see, hey, rates have popped up a little bit here due to what's occurring in the Middle East, let's just hold off, come back and take another look at this a month from now, we can absolutely do that. We're just looking for feedback on any thoughts as to where you maybe wanted to go with this.
Steve, are we looking at 50% again, or is there a recommendation to go slightly above that, 60-40?
Yeah, so Mark,
So we had
yeah,
about $16,000 benefit from doing what we did for
Yep.
3 months.
yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up. The other thing I didn't mention that Mark brought up is we locked in half of our usage last year, and we have the ability to, let's say, lock in 75%. So again, if you were of the belief, let's just say hypothetically, you're of the belief that like the geopolitical environment has the potential to become worse in the next month or so. You might believe that you'd rather lock in 75% of our natural gas pricing now, because the rates are very, very consistent with what we paid last year, which were quite a bit lower than what they'd been the previous couple of years. And so that would be another perspective as well, is to increase it from 50 to 75%. The question is really whether you're seeking like budget certainty to kind of lock in a stable price, or whether you're more interested in timing the market. Again, there's not like a right or wrong answer to this. It's just what your personal perspective is. Due to the dollar amounts, this definitely has to have board action on it. We wouldn't have the ability, Ally and I wouldn't have the ability to execute an agreement like this, because it's gonna be way beyond the 25,000, you know, that would be approvable
Steve,
under administration.
Steve, I guess, you know, from my thought, if we moved it up to December, you know, because I think, you know, November, you know, given where we are today with weather and so forth, November could be a little bit warmer. So we may not be using as much, or we'd be on par with probably last year. I think if things happen, you know, December is probably, you know, a good thing to pick. And I guess I would stay with the program from last year. You know, because that gives us some flexibility. Open it up to discussion.
Yeah, I think it might be a good idea to wait till November, get through the election. So much.
Concern I have is the geopolitical piece. I don't have a crystal ball, but I don't see that resolving. In the near future, I don't have a problem waiting until November. But in looking at the benefits we had just doing the 3-month experiment last year, minimally, I would like to extend it then December to April. If we only want to hedge our bet at a 50% level, I think that might make sense for prudence, but I would like to lock in sooner than later. I hate to wait till January to make our lock in.
Yeah, I think, you know, I can live with those. And, you know, I tend to agree with you, you know, again, we don't have crystal balls, but it doesn't look like things are moving in a positive direction. And would we consider going from 50 to maybe 60 or 70%?
Sure, I appreciate that feedback. So we will definitely bring that back next month. Data Wrangler is going to be super quick. I'm just going to ask Rebecca to bring up the chart. Just wanted to share with the committee that we started the trial. We're actually meeting with them today. Again, Data Wrangler is the system that allows us to track all of our meter usage and try to do system changes to seek energy efficiency improvements. What you're looking at here is just a single day at the new Heritage Elementary School. And just to orientate you a little bit on the chart, the blue, you can see the blue, it's the building load, really the demand. So this is electrical. So how much electrical was being pulled throughout this day? You can see it's fairly consistent from like 6 a.m. on during the school day. And then you can see when the school day ends, it drops significantly down. So the demand or the use of energy is very consistent. The orange is our solar generation. So you can see at noon that the solar generation from around noon till 2-ish, maybe 2:30-ish, is incredibly close to the actual demand of the building. And we did receive information that in this day alone, it was $125 worth of savings. So this was a really successful day. And ultimately, in the end, the other thing you can see from this, we tried to size the solar system to look like this because we can't sell energy back to Waunakee Utilities. So we don't want to significantly over-generate electricity. And our goal is to have it look very similar to what you see here. This is the type of data that we're going to be able to show in the coming months as we implement that trial and then look for energy efficiencies. Just wanted to just give you a little snapshot of what we're able to pull from that system and what we're going to be able to show you over the next couple of months. But this is a huge success with the solar system that we put in at Heritage.
Steve, question, we can't sell the energy back to Waunakee Utility, is that because of their system, they can't handle it?
It's their approach. Some utility systems in Wisconsin do purchase energy back and some don't.
Can we transfer any of this, you know, from building to building? Is there a way to work with Waunakee Utilities?
That I would have to ask. The one thing I do know we can do is store energy. We did not purchase batteries with the system, but you can purchase batteries to store it for your own use. So definitely a lot to explore in this area, but it's just really exciting to see the results of this as far as what we were really hoping to accomplish. And then Rebecca, if you wouldn't mind jumping back. This agenda item, Inflation Reduction Act, I put on both this committee and the next committee. I was just gonna ask a simple question. Is there anything that Ally and I can do for you as board members to help you make a decision on this next Monday? So you know you had an opportunity at closed session to spend over 30 minutes with the legal team that we brought on. They were able to go through a lot of the technicalities of the program and show you the spreadsheets and show you the data. We have put this on the October agenda, and it's a choice between, if you want to make it simple, it's a choice between a 6% reimbursement for the middle school and not investing in the prevailing wage and the apprenticeship program, or making the approximate $1.1 billion investment to meet prevailing wage requirements and apprenticeship requirements, and then be able to apply up to 27% for reimbursement. So please know that even if we don't make the additional investment, we are still intending to pursue these funds. It would be at the 6% level. But if the board wanted to make a decision to go with a higher upfront investment, then we'd have the ability to pursue a higher reimbursement rate. We just want to make sure, Ally and I want to make sure that if there's something that you need by next Monday night to help you make a decision, we want to get it to you. So that's the only point of this agenda item, is just to find out, is there something you need that you haven't seen yet that we can get to you? Mark?
Ally helped me with the information I asked her. I wanted to know what other expenses are associated with doing this. And just so we can see the total net return. And so that piece might be helpful for the whole board.
Yep.
I don't know. The other piece is, if we make this investment, it's a certainty of X. At this point, the 4.1 million or 4.2 million, that's a certainty or an approximation.
So based on our middle school and this program that's in place today, that's what we'd be eligible for. So
Okay.
we've done the deep dive by Whiffley, which is the CPA that's gone into the actual plans of the building and has calculated out the $14 million system. They verified that with Vogel. So all of the numbers have been vetted. With that being said, that's if the program that's in place today exists exactly the same when we apply for the reimbursement, because we can't apply for the reimbursement until the school is open. and is being used. It's a once a year thing after the school's been opened. And so what we can't, of course, comment on is the political environment and anything that may or may not change. But as of today, that's the vetted numbers and information for the program.
I think Woodley also, talked through the political, once it's approved, it's an act of Congress to really take it away and make changes to it.
So I'll leave it. If anybody has anything else that you need, please reach out to Ally or myself. We'd be happy to get that for you. And then the only other thing I think we had on there was just placeholder for fund balance policy. We won't talk about that now, but we do want to come back to this at the next meeting.
So we'll move the fund balance policy to our November meeting. Anything else? Motion to adjourn,
So moved.
Second,
all in favor?
aye.
Okay, we are adjourned.